It takes a hell of a lot for me to say this, but to me, these are the perfect fantasy series. Perfect amount of books in each series, perfectly paced, perfect characters. I would never change a thing about these series. Going rapid fire because we have so much to work through. So first of all, the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy is like one of my favorite trilogies, if not my favorite trilogy I have ever read. The most magical, whimsical world I have ever read. The first book introduced you to the characters so well. The second book was just one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And personally, I love the third book. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I loved it. The entire Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo. Like Six of Crows as a duology is talked about a lot, but the Grishaverse itself is not talked about enough. I swear to God, this does not have enough hype. It's the perfectly paced, interconnected fantasy world. Having cameos of your favorite characters turn up in later books is just the best feeling in the entire world. Nothing will ever top that. Couldn't do this without talking about the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. Every single book in this trilogy was a 5 stars for me. Characters are everything I could ever ask for in a fantasy world. This is a high fantasy world, by the way. A lot of depth to the magic system. So worth every single second. This is like rent-free in my head all the time. Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. I went so skeptical going into this, but it turns out it is one of my favorite trilogies. I just feel like this is so perfectly paced. I feel like the romance to action to politics to plot is just perfect. Found Family is just absolutely beautiful. If you're going to take one recommendation from this video, let it be the Mistborn series or this series. The Prison Healer trilogy by Lynette Noni. I recently finished this and I just feel like it took me on a roller coaster of emotions. This is a YA dystopian trilogy. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, and yet Lynette Noni writes in a way that will just never let me down. The twists in this were insane for a YA fantasy series, something I just never would have expected. And finally, for a duology, the One Dark Window duology, this could not have been one book, it could not have been 5 books. This was the perfect amount of action, romance, plot, politics in a duology. I need a quick fantasy duology to just binge read, this is perfect.